earlier.
It's insane.
So, guys, we've got to win them back. You have to, when you're losing the country, you lose, and roughly here, about 57% of Americans saying we want to deport all the undocumented immigrants.
Look at who is making the claim. This entire right-wing hysteria came from the lawyer of the corporate landlord putting that out into the public, and then the
What's going on, you guys? Today we have Emma Vigeland destroying Ana Kasparian. Ana Kasparian is wanting to chirp back at the Majority Report, at the quote-unquote leftists that are upset with the way that she covered some of her stories. And then we have the actual representation that Emma Vigeland and Sam Cedar give. Let's get into it.
I don't want to lose them anymore before we get to the actual problem.
No, we lost them. I want to be very clear that when I was talking about Venezuelan gang members, that was specifically meant to make a point about how the Democratic Party, which was in charge at the time, needed to do something about that. Otherwise, Americans are going to be ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And that's exactly what's happening here. So in 2016, public opinion polls showed that only 36% of Americans favored mass deportation, only 36%. Fast forward to today, let's look at the numbers. Well, New York Times came out with a poll, 56% of Americans in favor of mass deportations. Oh, well, that must be an outlier, right? Outlier poll. How could the number increase so much? Marquette, 64% of Americans in their poll indicated that they favor mass deportation. CBS News, 57%. ABC News, 56%. We have lost them already, because when you're unwilling to make a distinction between people who are here illegally, who are committing crimes, who are running amok, with those who might be in the country illegally, but they've been here for a while, they're productive members of society and they're not hurting anyone, well, all of a sudden you're gonna have the majority of Americans think, well, Democrats aren't serious about keeping us safe, and now we don't trust them to deal with immigration. Now we want mass deportation.
Yeah, so there were Venezuelan gangs. They were among the first rounded up in Denver. Now everybody admits that there were gangs, and they did take over apartment buildings. They never took over a city, and nobody other than some, I guess Trump might have said they took over the city, but that was outrageous and ridiculous. No one serious said that. So, but when you chose to fight on those grounds, you did great damage to our cause. Now mass deportation is more popular because people think that it might, we might be talking about those criminals. And so if we were recent, and by the way, and then everybody always changes the goalposts. So now I see people saying, oh, no one thought.
No one denied that there were Venezuelan gang members. No one denied that they were there.
No one denied that they took over.
And here's Ana Kasparian and Cenk Uyghur's side of the story. It's a little hard to follow personally. I believe that what they're saying is that, if we're not as leftists taking this issue seriously, if we're not taking this serious as a people, then, we don't look like we don't have an actual argument for it. If we're not taking it serious, then people may start to want to, go full right wing with this and, select mass deportations for a bunch of people. I believe that that's what they're saying.
Over apartments, at least.
That's exactly what they said.
That's
exactly what they said.
And no one denied that they should be deported. That's not true. People are denying it right now, right? Let alone earlier.
It's insane.
So, guys, we've got to win them back. You have to, when you're losing the country, you lose, and roughly here, about 57% of Americans saying we want to deport all the undocumented immigrants. You've got to be able to stop that, and the way you stop that is winning the argument, winning back people on moral grounds, intellectual grounds, and by being right and not choosing to defend insane radical positions, right? So look, once they move on to the raids of just undocumented immigrants, they're gonna start ripping families out of their neighborhoods, out of their houses, out of their churches, etc. If they go in that direction, my guess is and my hope is once people see it with their own eyes, it'll be really unpopular. That's the ground to fight on.
Right. So let's get to some more details. So Tom Homan in multiple interviews made it clear that they are specifically targeting individuals who have committed crimes. He says, my goal is to arrest as many public safety and national security threats as possible and move on to the other priorities. We're prioritizing criminal aliens. Now, ICE announced enhanced targeted operations in multiple cities, And you might notice a trend with the cities I'm about to list: Chicago, Atlanta, Puerto Rico, Colorado, Los Angeles, and Austin, Texas. Now, many of the cities that I listed happen to be sanctuary cities, and that's relevant because I think they're targeting these sanctuary cities to make a point about how if local authorities don't work with us, collaborate with us to help us deport individuals who have committed crimes, well, then we're gonna have issues with the collateral deportations. Individuals who haven't committed any other crime other than being in the country illegally, but since they are in the company of other migrants who have committed crimes, well, if they're in the same room, if they're in the same company, we're just gonna deport everyone, right, in that room. So according to ICE, let's go to this graphic. Nationwide, 956 people were arrested and 554 detainers were lodged Sunday, marking the.
And there we have it. I mean, something that really sticks out that is, and there we have it as far as Ana Kasparian and Cenk Uygur, their side of the story. Something that really sticks out to me that's problematic, what they're saying is we have to win them over. We've been, as far as, because it seems like they've fully just taken a neoliberal position. Neoliberals have done nothing but attempt to win over, quote unquote, win over for the past 40 years. And we've seen where that's got us. That's got us like completely wrapped up in corruption. And then Trump is able to call that out because we are attempting to play nice, to want to, oh, maybe if we make them happy, then we're not dealing with people. We're dealing with someone who is completely different from us. So what happens is you have people like Cenk Uygur and Ana Kasparian, very, very good intention, but they're wanting to play nice, quote unquote, or want to win them over, their own words. And then you have somebody like Trump who can call that out, who's sort of removed from both sides, or at least that's what he used to say. And then he'd say, hey, look, there's so much corruption. They just keep on like dancing with each other, they keep on doing this. And then that's how you get everybody. Let's see Sam Seder and Emma Vigeland actually cover this story.
Real threat is the property owner.
The only criminal here is the owner of this apartment who steals from us every month, asking us to pay for this living.
CBZ management says the gang scared property managers away from another building off Nome Street. Gladys says they've been paying rent and nothing's getting fixed.
The owner abandoned us.
Aurora Mayor Mike Kaufman visited the building this week. In a statement, he says the goal is to get these properties under the control of owners as soon as possible.
Can you pause it? You want to guess what party Mike Kaufman is a part of? He's a Republican, the mayor of Aurora, former congressman. He has been key in pushing this particular narrative, and I just want to note that as we continue to hear from the actual residents of the building, as opposed to taking the word of the lawyer of a corporate landlord and a Republican mayor of a city.
Also amazing that this mayor was able to go into a building complex taken over by Venezuelan gangs. It's also amazing that these Venezuelan gangs have obviously been supporting these people who live in the apartments enough that they will come out and run cover for the gangs.
And they're playing the long game too by filing all those complaints about unsafe conditions that were in like 2021 and things like that.
You've also got to appreciate the commitment by these people who are living in these buildings. They have obviously made their apartments look like absolute hell as a way of protecting these gang members. It's fascinating.
Goal is to get these properties under the control of owners as soon as possible. Neighbors say false information puts their safety at risk. A text sent to a resident calls them animals and threatens them with more firepower than you can ever imagine.
Neighbors from other buildings are posting around where we live.
They say it's time the city stop using a gang as an excuse.
These families deserve the opportunity to have resources and time to move somewhere safe.
The biggest difference in the way of coverage, the biggest difference in the way that these stories are being covered is that you have one who addresses, the right wing maybe as, oh, these are people just like us. Maybe we can win them over by reasoning with them. And then we have this story, I feel, as we have Emma Vigeland and Sam Seder. They're saying, these people are not reasonable. The right is not reasonable. The right is going to paint all of these people as monsters, as all these people as nuisances. We need to get them out. This is not winning over. This is I'm standing for these people that are being treated unjustly. I'm going to actually stand with them. I'm not going to win over the people in power. I'm not looking at the people in power. I'm really taking the progressives' take. I think that's the biggest difference between these two stories.
Now, the mayor says the best course of action is to shut these buildings down. Right now, the city's attorney's office is preparing an emergency court order to clear the buildings where gang activity has occurred. These people want a meeting with the city first. We're live in Aurora.
Well, local news wouldn't have the incentive to play off crime if it really, if it was really happening, right?
No, I mean, the irony is that you have got right-wingers promoting this story that that these buildings are being taken over by gangs, when the residents, are saying that this is putting us in jeopardy. Now, ostensibly, the reason why the people who are promoting this story that it's being taken over by gangs, because they care about the residents. Right. But yet, they're not listening to the residents.
And I'm reminded of stories that we heard about crime where it came from corporations that put it out into the press, and there were a lot of outlets on the right that took it at face value and then didn't correct themselves when the companies themselves corrected themselves. Target blamed shoplifting for
closing 9 stores, and of course it turns out that there were higher crime areas that they kept stores open. What they were basically doing is what a lot of these corporations do is, I'm going to blame my failure as the CEO or the CFO or the COO or the board of directors on choosing proper locations by saying it was a function of something other than me. I mean, it's that corporate thing. I just remember a guy at Air America when I was like, you completely lost like a market share, and he's like, well, there were 5 decisions that were made that were out of my control.
Well, I mean, but this is a lesson, I think, for people in terms of media literacy, right? Like, look at who is making the claim. Is it the party that is interested in offloading the responsibility of, say, losses or poor conditions in an apartment complex onto an outside
Make sure you guys like and subscribe for more content like this.
Factor that is where they can basically scapegoat certain people or scapegoat people who are poor or who are undocumented. Look at who is making the claim. This entire right-wing hysteria came from the lawyer of the corporate landlord putting that out into the public, and then the Republican mayor backing him. And this is a problem broadly with these corporate landlords not being held to account and allowing apartments because they own property, and that's that's a privileged class in this country. Letting them fall into disrepair, and then again blaming broader societal ills that fit their political agenda for their own failures. This is
So, I mean, again, this is just a microcosm of the bigger issue, is that who are we going to blame? Who is in charge of these issues? Who is in charge of making sure that these environments are good? Who is it? Who's the one? Are we going to let these standards get so low and then completely get the money to get them out of here, right? And then now we're going to refinish it. We're going to make it all better. And then now we're going to raise the prices up. Oh, and thank you guys for all the support, for helping me get all these bad people out, right? I didn't know what I could do without you guys. I was so scared for my life. Give me a break. It's just, it is the two different trains of thoughts. You have one who's going to appeal to power, who's going to want to make a deal with terrorists. And you're going to have someone that clearly knows. We have Emma Vigeland, Sam Cedar. They know we cannot negotiate with terrorists. This is not the case. Cenk Uygur, Ana Kasparian, freaking Peter Thiel funded people. You guys do nothing but grovel. It's understood. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. It's another day in the progressive way.